Daf Yomi Tractate Zevachim, page 116b. We're in the middle of the topic of the Agadata, the story type of Gemara about Rachav Hazonah, Rahab, the harlot, in the time of Joshua the son of Nun. We're about a line or two into it. Let's see here. The words Amru on 116b. Kuf Tes Zayin Amud Beis. With the words Amru. Amru Bas Esar Shanim. Hayta Kishiyatsu Yisrael Mitzrayim. Bezinta Kol Arbaim Shana Shayu Yisrael Mitzrayim. Acha Chamishim Shana Nizgayra. Amra Yehe Mechuli. Ischar Chevel Chalon Upishtim. The Gemara adds that the sages said with regard to Rahab, she was 10 years old when the Jewish people left Egypt, and she engaged in prostitution all 40 years that the Jewish people were in the wilderness. After that, when she was 50 years old, wow, so 10 years old, from that tender young age, according to the Talmud, I don't know if that's historically accurate or if it's just an idea, or maybe it is historically accurate. But they're saying that Rahab was 10 years old when she started to become a prostitute, and she lived 40 years like that, in the oldest profession, as they say. After that, when she was 50 years old, she converted when the two spies visited her. She said, "May all of my sins of prostitution be forgiven me as a reward for having endangered myself with the rope, window, and flax, by means of which I saved Joshua's two spies." Rahab first concealed the spies in the stalks of flax, and later assisted them in exiting her home by lowering them from the window with a rope. See Joshua chapter 2, verse 6, and 2, verse 15. Amar Mar. V'goy mizman hazeh rishon lasos kem v'nali mili. The Tanobaran. David Yisrael mitzuvin al shechutei chutz. V'goy mitzuvin al shechutei chutz. Now we're going back to the sacrifice topic. The Master said in the Braita that discussed the sacrifice of offerings before the construction of the tabernacle, and today Gentiles are permitted to do so, meaning to sacrifice offerings outside the temple courtyard, despite the fact that it is forbidden for the Jews. The Gemara asks, from where are these matters derived? And the sages, as the sages taught, with regard to the verses that prohibit the slaughter of offerings outside the temple, speak to Aaron and his sons and to all the children of Israel, Leviticus 17, verse 2. This indicates that only Jews are commanded with regard to offerings slaughtered outside the temple, but Gentiles are not commanded with regard to offerings slaughtered outside the temple. לפיכך כל אחד ביחד בונה לו במה לעצמו ומקריב עליה כל מה שירצה. אמר רבי יעקב ברכה אמר רבאסי אסור לציין ולעשות שלוחתן. אמר רבא ולאורינו שורי. Therefore each and every Gentile may, if he desires, construct a private altar for himself and sacrifice it upon whatever he desires. Rabbi Yaakov Baracha says, the Rav Asi says, although it is permitted for Gentiles to sacrifice offerings outside the temple courtyard, it is prohibited for a Jew to assist them or to fulfill their agency in this matter, as sacrificing in this matter is forbidden for a Jew. Rabbah said, but to instruct them how to sacrifice outside the temple is permitted. Kiha deifra hormiz. Yehad Ifra Hormiz, the mother of King Shapur. You find him coming up a lot in the Talmud. King Shapur, he's probably the reigning king at the time of these Amoraim. Yehad Ifra Hormiz, Ime de Shabur Malka. Shedei Rabbi Kurban Rabba Shalachala Shechale Iskua Dihale L'Shem Shemayim Amaduhu L'Rav Safra U'L'Rav Achabar Huna Zilu U'Devaru Treul Me Gulaim Echazor Hecha Dimaska Gama Sirton Ushkalu Tzive Chadete Ve'apiku Nura Mimara Chadeta Ve'askuha Ni'aleh L'Shem Shamayim. This is similar to the incident in which Ifra Hormuz, the mother of King Shapur of Persia, sent an offering to Rava, with which she sent this message to him: sacrifice this for me, for the sake of heaven. Rava said to Rav Sofer and to Achabar Huna, go, take 2 Gentile youths of the same age, similar to one another, so that the sacrifice will be performed with maximal beauty, and see where the sea currently raises silt, sirton, which is a place where no one has used before, and take new wood, and bring out fire from new vessels, and the 2 youths will sacrifice the offering for the sake of heaven. Okay. Rabbi Kiman, Ki Rabbi Elazar ben Shmuel, Rabbi Elazar ben Shmuel Omer, Ma Mizbeach shelo yishtamesh bo hedyot, Av eitzim shelo yishtamesh bahen hedyot, V'hamod Rabbi Elazar ben Shmuel bebama. Abai said to Rav, in accordance with whose opinion was the instruction to sacrifice exclusively with new wood? Was it in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Elazar ben Shmuel? As is taught in Brighton, Rabbi Elazar ben Shmuel says, just as the altar is a place that is not used by an ordinary person, so too the wood that will be used must not be used by an ordinary person. The Gemara asks, but doesn't Rabbi Elazar ben Shmuel concede that in a case of a private altar, the wood need not be new? The Tanya, Katuv Echad Omer, Vayitain David Arnan b'makom shikle zahav mishkal 600 b'gomer ketiv. Vayiken David et hagorem et habakar chesed shkalim 50. Haketzad, as it is taught in a Braita with regard to David's purchase of the site of the temple, when he wished to build an altar there at God's instruction. One verse states that David gave to Ornan for the place 600 shekels of gold by weight. And David built there an altar to the Lord and offered burnt offerings and peace offerings. 1 Chronicles 21, 25 to 26. And it is written elsewhere, so David brought the threshing floor and the oxen for 50 shekels of silver. David built there an altar to the Lord and offered burnt offerings and peace offerings. 2 Samuel 24, 25. How can these texts be reconciled? Okay, David can... Okay, so it's 600 versus 50. Right? Okay. How can these texts be reconciled? Can you prove it's the same one, same time? I don't know. Okay. What do they say? Gova mikol shevet v'shevet chamishim shehen 600. Rabbi Omer mishum Abba Yosef ben Dostai bakaretz ve'etzim makom mizbeach b'chamishim b'chol bayit kulo b600. David would collect from each tribe of the 12 tribes 50 shekels which are some of the 600 shekels. And Yehuda Banasi says, in the name of Abba Yossi ben Ostai, that there is another explanation. David purchased the cattle and the wood and the site of the altar for 50 shekels, and he purchased the site of the entire temple for 600 shekels. Okay? There's two explanations. Rabbi Elazar ben Shmuel Omer, Bakar Ve'etzim Makom Mizbeach B'chamishim B'chol B'bayis Kulo B'shesh Milyon D'chsiv V'yom Aravna El David Yikach V'yal Adoni HaMelech Hatov Beinav Rebakar Le'olam V'hamoriyim B'chol Tem Habakar La'etzim V'rava Amarlach Hatov Nami B'chaditei. Rabbi Elazar ben Shmuel says, likewise, David purchased the cattle and the wood and the site of the altar for 50 shekels, and the site of the entire temple for 600 shekels. It's written, and Aruna said to David, let my lord, the king, take and offer that which is good in his eyes, see the cattle for the burnt offering, and the threshing tools and implements of the cattle for wood. That's in 2 Samuel 24:22. To which David replied, no, but I will buy it from you at a price. 2 Samuel 24:24. Consequently, according to the opinion of Rabbi Elazar ben Shmuel, right, this came up recently. Rabbi Kirk Schneider. Right. It has to cost him something. Consequently, according to the opinion of Rabbi Elazar ben Shmuel, David purchased the threshing instruments and the furniture of the oxen for use as wood, and Rava could have said to you in response, there too, in the case of David, the verses dealing with new vessels that had not yet been used. My morigim. My morim. אמרנו למיטה של טורבל. מה מיטה של טורבל? אמר בעיה איזה דקור כסה, דדיישן דישאה. אמר בעיה מה יקרא? הנה שמתיך למורג חרוץ חדש, פעל פיפיות. The Gemara asks, what are the threshing instruments mentioned in the verse? It was said, it is a turble bed. The Gemara asks, and what is a turble bed? The Bible said is a heavy serrated board used for threshing. Abai said, what is the verse from which the meaning of morigim is derived? Behold, I have made you a new threshing board, having sharp teeth. You shall thresh the mountains and beat them small, and shall make the hills as chaff. Isaiah 41:15. This verse indicates that a morag has grooves and teeth and is used for threshing. Makrile Ravalebre Veramile Karayadadek Siketiv Vaitin David Leranan Vegomer Uketiv Vaiken David Gomer Aketzad Gover Mial Shevet Shevet Chamishim Shein Shesh Meot. With regard to the contradiction between the verses that relate the sum of shekels paid by David, the Gemara says that Rava was teaching these verses to his son and raised the contradiction between the verses. It is written, so David gave to Ornan 600 shekels of gold by weight, 1 Chronicles 21:25, and it is written, so David bought, I assume it's the same person, Ornan, 50 shekels of silver, 2 Samuel 24:24. Okay. How can these texts be reconciled? David would collect from each tribe 12 of the 12 tribes, 50 shekels, which are a sum of 600 shekels. The Gemara asks, but these verses are still difficult as they contradict one another. Since there in the book of Samuel it is stated that David paid silver shekels, while here in Chronicles it is stated they paid gold shekels. The Gemara replies, rather, this is what the verses are saying. David would collect from each tribe silver shekels that had the value of 50 gold shekels in weight, so that the final sum was equal to 600 shekels of gold. Okay. Kachim kalim nechalim bechol machane Yisrael. Amar Rav Huna bechol mekamos Yisrael aval machane Lohavi. The Mishnah teaches that once the tabernacle was established, the wilderness offerings of lesser sanctity were eaten throughout the camp of Israel. Rav Huna says this means that offerings of lesser sanctity were eaten in any of the places that an Israelite would be found, but there was no actual camp outside of which it was prohibited to eat the offerings. Esvei Rav Nachman Rav Huna Umachanos Bamidbar lo Havai v'Hatanya Keshem Shemachane Bamidbar Kach Machane B'Yerushalayim Mi'Yerushalayim L'Har HaBayis Machane Yisrael L'Har HaBayis Yishar Nikanor Machane Leviyah. Rav Nachman raised an objection to Rav Huna, and were there not camps when the Jews were in the wilderness? But isn't it taught in a Braita, see Tosefta, Kalim, Bava Kama 112, just as there was a camp in the wilderness that was divided into different sections, with each section having particular halachot pertaining to the consumption of offerings and to the ritually impure individuals who were prohibited from entering there. So too, there is a corresponding camp in Jerusalem. The area from the walls of Jerusalem to the Temple Mount has the status of the Israelite camp. The area from the Temple Mount to Nikanor's gate at the entrance to the temple courtyard has the status of the Levite camp. From that point onward, meaning from the entrance to the temple courtyard, the area has the status of the camp of the divine presence, and the temple courtyard has the same status as the area within the curtain surrounding the courtyard of the tabernacle in the wilderness. The Gemara replies, rather say that Rav Huna meant that when the tabernacle was in the wilderness, offerings of lesser sanctity would be consumed wherever the Israelite camp was located. The Gemara asks, isn't that obvious? Wherever the Jews were located in the wilderness was where the Israelite camp was. The Gemara responds, lest you say that during the periods of travel between encampments, the offerings were taken outside the Israelite camp and were thereby disqualified due to the meats leaving the area. Within the partition, Rav Huna teaches us that the meat is not disqualified. The Gemara asks, but why not say that this is indeed so, meaning that the meat is disqualified because it left the camp? The Gemara answers that the verse states, then the tent of meeting with the camp of the Levites shall travel in the midst of the camps as they encamp, so shall they travel. Numbers 2:17. which indicates that although it traveled from its place, it is still the tent of meeting. Similarly, the Israelite camp retains its status even while traveling. Tanya Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai Omer, עוד אחרת הייתה, וכן עזרת נשים היא, ולא היו עונשין עליה, ושילה לא היו אלא שני מחנות בלבד. With regard to the division of Jerusalem into three camps, it is taught in the Brayta that Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai says, there was an additional camp in Jerusalem within the area of the Temple Mount, and it was the rampart of the women's courtyard. The sages rendered it prohibited for certain ritually impure individuals to enter that area, but they would not punish them for entering it, as by Torah law it does not constitute a distinct section of the Temple Mount, but has the status of the Levite camp. The Brayta adds, and when the tabernacle was in Shiloh, there were only two camps. The Gemara asks, which of the three camps that were present in the wilderness were not present in Shiloh? Rabbah said, it stands to reason that the Levite camp was present, but the Israelite camp was not, as if it enters your mind to say that the Levite camp is not present in Shiloh. We'll continue this, God willing, on next daf, next video.